This is Ukraine in 1992. It has about 3,000 nukes. But if we fast forward to 2023, it is in a fight with Russia while having no nuclear weapons. So how did we get here? Let me explain. This is 1991 and this is the USSR, a superpower along with another superpower, the US. But oh no, USSR collapsed and we got a couple more countries. But oh yes, sole superpower America said. But then said, realizing what will happen to the nukes. Now going to the nuke, the USSR possessed around 37,000 nuclear bombs, but it was no more. Where did it go then? Where it was? Where was it? Where it was? In Ukraine, Kazakhstan and Belarus and Russia. And on the other side, Ukraine possessed about 3,000 nukes. There was a lot of discussion amongst the nuclear powers about this very issue. So what should we do? Disarm their nukes. What did they say about the nukes? Belarus and Kazakhstan made it clear that they didn't want to keep these nuclear weapons and have asked for help in getting rid of them. That leaves Ukraine. What did they say? It looked like Ukraine would keep the nuclear weapons as Ukraine was silent about it, but in reality, there was a lack of political willpower to keep the nukes, and there was also pressure from the opposition parties. This country was facing hyperinflation, aka superinflation, and corruption and instability and crime, and of course, unemployment. The unemployed, starving populace was of course against it, and also they had memories of a previous nuclear disaster. Ukraine was facing pressure from the general public, along with the opposition parties, along with the international community. Now onto the international community, the Western powers and the US created financial aid packages for former Soviet republics. While most didn't have any conditions for the US had one condition: no nuclear weapons. As I said, Ukraine's economy was struggling and they needed money. Also, to maintain the nukes, Ukraine had to make a brand new nuclear weapons program from scratch, which is very difficult. And they would have gotten no outside help in maintaining them. And they can't just for 30 years or more just let them be. That isn't safe. It could cause a nuclear disaster which they had experienced. And also, keep in mind, requires a lot of money which could be spent on the people who are angry and starving and struggling to live. It was a security issue and a money issue, and Ukraine realized something that I will get to in a moment, but there was one benefit of keeping a nuclear weapon. Owning such weapons would essentially guarantee that you would never be invaded, since the cost of the invader would be far too high. And for the people who lived in Ukraine, there were memories of how many times they were invaded. To solve this very issue, the Budapest Memorandum came into place. This made the USA, Russia and the UK all agree to mutually respect the territory of these three states in return for giving up their nuclear weapons. It was not a defensive treaty, just a promise, and not legally binding. Nothing important for them. It just assured that these powers wouldn't use economic actions, meaning sanctions, or military action against any of these states. And Ukraine got its sweet aid money, and its primary concern that the US would use economic sanctions or being invaded was solved. And Ukraine realized one important thing: it didn't possess the ability to use the weapons like the nuclear codes and the know-how of the nuke. The nuclear codes and knowledge belonged to Russia, and they weren't just going to share. Ukraine could have reverse engineered it, of course, and had the capability to do it, but it requires a lot of money and political support, which they somewhat didn't have. And even if they had all that, just for getting sanctioned by the USA and other powers, ruining the already ruined economy and getting politically and economically isolated. So in 1994, Ukraine signed the NPT and gave up its nukes and signed the Budapest Memorandum. One thing again about the memorandum: not legally binding. Now fast forward to 2023 to 2024, it has received about $200 billion of aid from the West for a particular reason: find out why.